evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're watching or listening from. Welcome to the Sitdown with Standups here at Punchline Comedy Club. This is the second episode of this particular podcast, and we're extremely fortunate and privileged to have a comedic legend. We have a comedic genius, a person who's been basically doing this for a very, very long time, over a decade. But more than anything, he is a friend and brother from another continent. No, actually another country. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for none other than Mr. Chris Mapane. Asante sana, Chris. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know people don't consider South Africa as part of Africa.
Yeah, that's another continent, man.
But,
That is not,
Yeah.
like, South Africa is always very strange because you feel like you're in Europe.
Yes.
And then after you drive for a bit, you're in Johannesburg, you take the wrong turn, you find yourself in Limpopo. Then you're like, oh, fuck, where am I right now? This is a different continent.
Yeah.
Chris, you've been here for a week. How are you feeling? How are you doing? How's things?
I'm loving everything. But also because I'm a bit twisted. Your driving here is so nice.
Yes.
I won't drive here.
You won't drive here, or do you want to drive here?
I won't. I will not do that.
See, that's one of the things. Is like, you know how they say if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere.
Yeah.
If you can drive in Nairobi, you can drive anywhere. That's the truth.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that. You guys don't give a damn about road signs. In fact, now that I think about it, I don't even think I've seen road signs.
There's no. You see, in Kenya we don't have traffic rules. We have traffic suggestions. So anything and everything, it means whatever you want it to mean. If you see a red sign, it means stop, but it also means go if you want. Like it's the vibe. It's the vibe. But driving this back to comedy is you actually cancelled your one-man special to fly down to Nairobi to be able to spend some time with us and grace some of our stages. What does it feel like to have been in the game for over 17 years? That's a very long time. I think some of our listeners were not even born at that time.
What, you have kids who are under 17 listening to this?
We have fans everywhere, man. We
Yeah,
have kids who are
parents.
being born and they're like Punchline for life. Like,
Oh, nice.
yeah.
Punchline. That's how they cry.
So 17 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Man, with I've tried a lot of things. I think like each and every African country, stand-up comedy is still fairly new.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So when I was still in school, I didn't even know it existed. The first time I saw a live stand-up comedian, it was at the show I was about to do. In fact, not even I was about to do. I was doing an open spot, so I went on stage, and then I saw comedians afterwards.
So how did you, that's very interesting. Then how did you first interact with stand-up comedy? And then at what point did you realize, oh, this is something that I feel I want to do?
After I dropped out of university, I said
Which
that in
uni is
passing.
this?
Vets University.
Okay, shout out to Vets. Competition for UCT, we don't fuck with you, but yeah.
Yeah, so I was doing industrial engineering there. And then after, I think, 2 years, I dropped, and then I was doing nothing for some time. I think at that particular time, if somebody said play soccer, football, depending where you're watching from, I would have done that. I didn't do it because I can't. But so I did a lot of things, like for a week or so, and then you change, you do something else. But comedy for me, I realized when I was doing it, like 2 years later into the thing. When you're like, wait a minute, this has been 2 years. Oh, I never even had a relationship over 2 years. This is the first thing I've been doing for that long, and then it became my life. And also when I started comedy in TV, South Africa had 4 channels that people were watching on TV, right? And also, we didn't really have much stand-up comedians when they were starting out. So it was easier for one to find themselves on TV, and on national TV, right? Which is a big deal, especially when you have like 4 channels and all black people watch one channel, white people watch one channel, it's like it was that vibe, So I was on TV very quick. and then once you're in it, you taste it, and then you learn from the inside, and you just keep doing it.
The thing is, for a lot of our listeners, and especially in Africa, for us, the holy grail when it comes to stand-up comedy is South Africa. When we think South Africa, we think that's basically our mecca right now, because we have all the greats who are coming from there. We have you, we have Ndumiso Lindi, we have KG, we have like Trevor Noah. We have all these guys who've basically been there. Yeah. And for us, it's really difficult to understand, especially given that our scene is relatively young.
Yeah.
So as we speak, I think if we're talking about the English stand-up comedy scene in Nairobi, we are almost 7 years in. And when you think about it, you've been doing comedy longer than that.
Yeah.
So what do you feel, and you've been here for a few days, what do you feel are some of the similarities that we have with the scene down in South Africa? But what are also some of the differences that we have between our scene and your scene?
In terms of difference, really, there isn't much. In fact, I can't even pin one. But I can talk about the similarities, which is the main one, is freedom of self-expression. Freedom of speech here.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's entire Kenya, but you guys are free to talk about everything. Because once you have that thing where there's like you can't talk about this, it fucks up with your freedom of self-expression.
Yep.
And once you take away the freedom of self-expression, what do you do, right? And because in other countries, like you can talk about anything, but don't talk about politics.
Yes.
Don't talk about religion. Don't talk about. But here we have that, and so as a result, it opens up a nice space for stand-up comedy. And remember, right now, back in the days when you really check stand-up comedy, it was people doing sketches and putting on a play, for something, right? But now we are doing the style called social commentary, and or observational humor, right? So even now, people are now checking out stand-up comedians to find out about what is happening on the news, what is happening, So if something comes up today, if you guys, there's a news now, you guys, your first lady has a different department now for prayer sessions, right?
Yes.
So people watch that throughout the day, and they know that they have to go to a comedy show that night. They know comedians have something, to say about that, right? And then we use comedy also for, it heals, it makes people kind of see the lighter side of things, because we share laughter. Like we're not there to, so there's love there. You cannot do that. And also what we do is we are funny. You cannot spell funny without fun. So we take a topic the way it is, and then we break it down, we bring the lighter side of, so people come to comedy shows to, they're like, we can't wait to hear what Eric has to say about this. You know what I'm saying? And no matter how crazy the topic can be, and I think that's how most of us survived COVID.
Yeah. I think I want to take you back a couple of years, because as an African, one of the things that we always have is the obligation, and basically our parents are very entitled to us and our futures.
Yes.
So young Chris Mapane is at Wits University. He's been doing this. He's basically doing his course. I'm sure your parents are very excited. They're like, my son is going to be an engineer. And then you drop out.
Yes.
What was that like? Like for you to drop out? And like the thing is, as you're saying it, you weren't like, I'm dropping out to do this. You were just like, I'm out.
Yeah. Well, first of all, my parents did not know what industrial engineering is. Let's start there.
Okay.
Hell, man, I figured it out 6 months into it myself.
Okay.
I also didn't know what this thing was, I just happened to do it because of funding.
Yeah.
So my mother is the kind of person who will always ask a question at the beginning of the year. Are you okay for this year? Go do your thing. Okay. Right? But I had to, in a way, trick her into the thing, because I remember I told her about stand-up comedy when we were watching my first TV appearance.
Oh.
So I was like watching, like, yeah, it's like, Mom, I'm going to be on TV. Like, oh, nice. And then watching TV, I'm like, oh, by the way, I'm no longer in varsity. And it's like, all right, cool, all right, cool. And then 2 days later, it's like, hey,
Hang on.
did you just, you know? But so it was a bit of it was not really much of a problem because I'm from an era. I'm not really from that information. You know what I'm saying? So the generation before us, our parents don't really have much information about this thing. You know, so they are figuring them out with us. You know, so even when I said I'm doing engineering, she didn't even know what that you
was.
know, she just got the confidence from the fact that I was happy to do whatever I'm doing.
Oh, nice.
So whether you're saying you're going to be a comedian, you're going to be this, because the typical ones were like your doctor,
your teacher, your nurse, your lawyer.
Yeah. But she knew that there's a bigger world out there, you know. So that gave me freedom to actually discover these things.
I'm very grateful for parents who are very supportive. Because a lot of times that is a very unique scenario. That is a very unique situation compared to what a lot of comedians especially go through. Because in Africa, the arts are still not viewed as a career. You find a lot of pushback with people who are talking about, oh, why would you try and throw away your life for this? We have people, for example, you have a comedian, his name is Ty Ngashira. He's a trained lawyer and he is actually an advocate of the High Court. But he resigned from his job and committed his life fully to stand-up comedy. He has his own TV show, and that's really good. But for a lot of people, the risk is so high because there's a lot of association with your success is not just your success. Your success is the whole family's success. And in some instances, it's the entire clan's success. It's your success defines everything around you and everyone around you. So until you've made it to that point, it becomes very difficult. Now, again, turning the clock back and looking at it, your very first performance, you're going on stage, you're experiencing this, you're trying to do this for the very first time, bearing in mind that at that particular time, I believe we didn't have a prevalence of stand-up comedy and we didn't even have a precedence of stand-up comedy, even in South Africa.
Yeah.
What was that like? Please take us through that and tell us what that was like.
So the starting for me, I started while I was still a student at Vets, but I was just doing it for fun. Because of that, there was no pressure to learn the techniques and all those things. And I performed for a very long time in front of my people. So there was a poetry society called Deja Vu, and I was the chairperson of that society at Vets at the time. So I used to MC the open mics, you know. So that's where the whole humor thing came from when I was still doing this thing. Earlier you mentioned when you asked me about the difference and similarities. Actually, there is a difference that I saw and is flipping very impressive. So when I listen to the introductions of comedians here, we have people like Ty is a lawyer, you know, you were a lecturer, you know. So there's a lot of educated cats who are doing this here. You know what I'm saying? And with that, it also now gives power and strength to this, right? In SA, we have a lot of cats who are educated, but we also have a lot of cats who are like, you know, I didn't want to go to school, so I'm just going to try doing this, right? And then with that being said, it also gives, you know, like space for good content, you know, because you guys, I mean, as a lawyer, you would also want to listen to another lawyer. You know what I'm saying? So your take into topics, into matters, it comes out very nice. You know?
And
so,
it also gives you credibility. It gives you some credibility whereby someone's like, this guy is also a lawyer, so he must know what he's talking about.
You know, so it then is going to make it even quicker for people to respect. You know, like you say, most people just see us clowning. You know? But then when you have so many professionals doing this, you know, it comes with that dignity of what we are doing. You know, and then so starting out, I performed a lot around campus, and then I went out late, I think about after a year or two, and then I remember believing that I'm gonna do the first show, and then the following week they're paying me. I'm going to make money.
Mistake.
You know, I realized 2 years later,
Yeah.
while I'm still grinding in this day, I'm like, come on, where's the money? You know, so, because you see, with stand-up, you only learn on stage.
Yeah.
During COVID, we were writing a lot, but we couldn't do any of that
couldn't
material.
perform, yeah.
And then you lose the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right. Remember, we tell people where and when to laugh. Right. Have you ever written a joke word by word, and then the following day you can't remember what's funny about
What's
it?
funny about it? Yeah.
You know. So now, if you write the entire page or 30 minutes, but without performing it,
Yeah.
you know, everything that I wrote during COVID, I'm not using it. You know, so you learn those things, and then here, which is good. We used to have that culture back in the days in SA of workshops.
Yeah.
You know, where comedians will sit down and workshop material and things like that. You guys do it a lot here, which is quite.
It
beautiful.
is something. It is something. So one of the things that's amazing is that comedy needs to be practiced.
Yes.
You always, and I always say this, and this is a line I borrow from Roy Wood Jr. He says that comedy is the only art form that is prepared, created, curated, and performed in front of the final consumer at all times. Because I always say this, like bands, Sauti Soul, all these guys, they can lock themselves up in the studio, do an album, come out, give it out, great, it's good. But for comedy, in order for it to work, it must be tested time and time again in front of those people. And comedy is very difficult. And a lot of people admonish me for saying comedy is difficult. But comedy is very difficult because if you produce a song, that same song can be played 3 million times.
Yeah.
And it is okay. But for jokes, as soon as you hear the joke the 6th time, it's worn off. So comedians are held to a higher standard compared to other creators at most times. And so I always think that the level of comedy or the level comedy as an art form is more elevated, and especially stand-up comedy is more elevated because you go on stage and you make it and fix it and tweak it as you're performing.
Yes.
And that means that you're basically splitting yourself into different personalities.
Yes.
Now, the next question that I'll have for you, and this is an interesting one.
Do you
Go
mind
ahead.
if I say something on that?
Yeah.
And it's one of the few industries where your critics are people who cannot do what you do.
Exactly. It's the people who cannot do, like sometimes you do shows and you come off stage and a guy comes and tells you, you know, you can do this, and you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. This is an open mic. You can also go on stage. He's like, no. I'm fine where I am. But also one of the most beautiful things I like is people who think that it's very simple. They get drunk and their friends are like, oh, you're funny. And then they're like, go on stage, and they get there. We've had this on so many occasions.
Yes.
You climb on that stage, the lights are hitting your face, you're looking into the audience, the mic is there. I have seen a guy sober up. He was like slosh drunk. And he climbed on stage and looked at the people, and he went whoop, and you could see the alcohol just leave him. He was like, and he got off stage and he left. And I was like, even for the most professional comedians, that stage humbles you.
Oh, yes.
That stage humbles you.
Yes.
If you don't put in the work. And the worst thing about stand-up comedy is if you do not put in the work, it will show.
Yeah.
It will show. You can't hide. It's not like a film whereby you can be like, cut, and you switch out and you come back in and you do the lines again. No.
Yeah.
You're on stage. If you're dying, you're dead.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I feel like that's a very special thing that they hold. It's a great power, but it's also a great responsibility.
Oh, yes.
You have been here for a number of days. You have
Yes.
experienced Nairobi. You've seen Nairobi around. What's the most interesting thing? And I know you have seen a lot and had a lot of ridiculous things.
Yeah.
What's the most interesting thing that you think every time you tell someone in South Africa this is happening, they're just like, you're lying, bruh?
That was a Koya kid.
I'm going to turn this to this camera and explain. Wajakoya is a gentleman who was running as a presidential candidate in the last elections. And he had very many policies, and some of these policies, I think, are what you've been hearing. What are some of the things you've been hearing?
The idea of him settling what you guys pay.
Yeah, the Chinese debt.
Yes, using the hyena balls.
Yeah.
You know what's the crazy part about that? Like you say, I have been saying I'm sure you heard this thing a lot from me. You lying.
Yes.
Stop lying, man. So now at home, I decided to start sending them links. I'm like, no, just read this.
Just
thing.
read this.
And then they come back, they're like, oh yeah, you're not bullshitting us.
It's very true, yeah. Oh, we have I think we're going to keep recording, but we have a helicopter that's hopefully not looking for Chris. Illegal immigrants are also a problem in this country.
They don't even know I'm here.
I think one of the things that's crazy about Kenya and doing comedy in Kenya is that Kenya is the gift that keeps on giving.
Oh, yes.
And our leaders are the gift that keeps on giving. I told you a story before you got here. We had a 2-hour conversation on the phone because as a good comedian, Chris was doing so much research on this country. And I told you about the guy who had stolen the kit for the Olympic team.
Yes.
And then yesterday we were at the bar after we finished the show and we're talking about the scandals. And these guys are like, oh yeah, this guy showed up in the courtroom wearing the exact same kit that he had stolen.
Give them the punchline.
And that guy was let go. That guy is free right now. It's one of those things.
That's like saying to somebody, you ate the chips. It's like, what chips? Did you see? What chips? And the judge is like, no, this guy is innocent.
This man did not eat the chips.
Did not eat the chips.
So we're going back to comedy in South Africa. In Nairobi right now is where stand-up comedy is happening a lot.
Yes.
When I look at South Africa, even in places as far as Transvaal, I look at places like Durban, there's still lots of comedy that is happening. Every time I'm in South Africa, there's an opportunity for you to do comedy. And it means that it's an industry that has basically grown over a period of time. What are some of the things you think that as a very young industry, we should be doing right now to try and get things going for us so that we not only have comedy in Nairobi, we're able to spread the gospel of comedy to other towns, but also how do we strengthen where we are starting? Because it's one thing to try and do comedy in other cities, but if it's not strong enough where you're starting off, then it's really what do you think?
What makes comedy is people. So as long as there's people anyway, comedy can take place. There's a guy called Mashabela Khalani, one of the greatest comedians in my country. So what Mashabela did, he opened up space for most of the young cats to perform all over the country.
Yeah.
Right? So in SA, we like, I don't know, like things, Jehovah's Witnesses, we gather in one place and then like in almost every night, there's comedians all over the country.
Yes.
Spreading this healing that we do as comedians. So I remember, like I said, starting out, there are a lot of places that we went that was like, it's the first time they ever see comedy.
Yeah.
Right. But you see, when you get to a place and then they're saying it's the first time they see stand-up comedy, I can't help but think about, and then what happens to the talent that is already here?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Remember, I got exposed to this thing, and also because I moved from a small town in the Free State where I come from to Johannesburg.
Yes.
If that did not happen, chances are I wouldn't even have known about this thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I would say it is your duty to go to those places and don't even have to worry about it has to be better here, because it's jokes.
Yeah.
And also what it does, it opens up space for comedians to learn about the entire country, because we can be one country but we can't be the same.
That's true.
That's true. And the beauty of doing it while the guys are still starting out is so that they don't get strong in one side and they get to a space where now they choose. In SA, when I started, we had to do all the different languages, all the different provinces, all the different demographics, different structures, different people, different backgrounds.
Yeah.
So as a result, now you can put me anywhere in the country. I will perform.
And you still have resonance.
I still have, with whoever I'm performing for. Because when I was starting out, I was forced to go to those places.
Yeah.
So my growth was not only on one side. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So guys now who are performing in Nairobi, while they're still in a space to learn, they should also now be starting to,
perform in other cities as well.
Because you get to a space where you're so good on one side that you can't afford to even you know,
go to another
to go and,
yeah.
you know, so now you, and the process of unlearning, you know, it's not really that easy, even though we need it, you know, but then we can also avoid it by saying, hey man, you're starting out. I like what you guys do here, where your comedians know how to write, to produce, to operate camera, to, you know, to do sound, things like that. You know, I, for example, I'm not really that big on social media, and the reason is because I feel like, hey man, I'm too old to learn this shit, right? But now a cat who's starting now, they will be like, yo, bro, you need to know all these
all
things.
the TikToks or everything,
You know, so that's the thing. And even in SA, you'll realize there's a lot of comedians who are like that. You know, we're not good in social media. The bigger cats, you know, myself, KG, we suck ass when coming to this thing, right? And we're old. So in order for us to have social media going, we need to consult. I need to consult Vafana Ranyi because he's good with this thing, right? So it is best to cover as much ground as possible while you are still starting out. You know, so that it all grows, you know, because you get to a space where you can't even if you want to, you can't afford to learn because the audience is already expecting you to be great.
Yes.
Remember, like you said, comedy is the only place where your first time, let's say we're having the same thing with lawyers, right? You are a kid who has never seen law, and then you're like, I want to be a lawyer. And then your first thing is like, go to court.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
With a proper case, by the way. Not even, not with something where you are trying out. No, with a proper case like this.
It's
person,
a murder case. Let's go.
It's a you know. So comedy is like that.
Yeah.
You know. So we then now, so you get to a space where the audience cannot. I'll make an example. Me here. It's my first time in Nairobi. But my name makes it in a way that I can't even make mistakes.
Yes.
You know?
Because there's already an expectation.
You see.
Yeah.
So we've seen a lot of comedians in SA that cannot even afford to learn, you know, because they're already there.
They're already there.
You know?
Which is very interesting when we speak about starting out and trying to learn, is that you have been what we call a proselytizer, an evangelist for comedy, not only in South Africa, but you have ventured out to try and basically spread the gospel of comedy and stand-up comedy at that to other countries.
Yeah.
You were the very first guy to try out to Swaziland and be like, we need to find comedians. We need to try and get this going. Please tell us about that. That's a very interesting aspect.
The same concept goes with when you go to small towns and other towns, and then there are no comedians, right? So there's a comedian called Mod and Rip Cracker in Botswana, right? In fact, here's the thing. All these countries, they've always been someone, but I don't give a damn, man. Those cats have always been about themselves.
Yes.
You know, so the whole idea of movements is something that we see now with Punchline, you know, TZ, Punchline Nairobi, you know. So when I went to Botswana in 2008, and we did a show, it was just the three of us. It was myself, Mod, and Rip Cracker. You know, we had a good show. And it was the three of us because those were the only cats, you know. And then every time I go to Botswana, even if I'm booked for something that is not related to the circuit itself, I'll always be like, but I need someone from local, you know. And then, but Mott and Rip Cracker were already there. In Swaziland, there was nobody. I even remember the first two shows, we had a poet opening for us, you know. So myself, Trevor Gumbi, we went there. We couldn't find local cats. And then I went back again the following year with Chris Forrest. Couldn't find anyone. We went there again with Tsapo Mokhale, Olifants, and Dylan Olifants, and Pravesh Mangaldev. Still, we couldn't find anyone. And that was like in 2012. And then I stopped going. And then in 2019, I got a message from a comedian called Dr. Shakes in Swaziland. He's like, yo, man, I'm running a circuit here. I was like, yo, bro, I'll come. You know, because I've been looking for this, you know. So now Lesotho has a lot of comedians, you know, but before it was also one guy just very long time. And then we went there, and then now there's Dilapalapa and other guys who are running the thing, you know. So we are at the space where, for me, is where I always wanted to see the industry, because you see now, because you guys are here, I can come and find people to perform for. You know, most of the people in Nairobi did not know about me, you know, but now imagine if you guys were not here.
It becomes even twice, 3 times, 4 times as hard for you to come and perform.
You know, because so now so it has always been a thing for me that let's go and get people to do this thing.
Yeah.
You know, and my message every time whenever I'm in any country or even in any town outside the cities in South Africa, I always say, you guys should not only come out when we are in town.
Yes.
You know, support the guys.
Support the comedy. Support
Yes.
the arts.
Yes, that way they won't rob you.
That's also true. I'm just saying that
We're taking these kids from the streets.
we have cats like Maina Munene, who is a reformed bandit. He used to
Oh
be a
yeah,
cat-
I feel the same thing. Every time I'm with him, I'm like,
This guy is
nigga might-
dodge. Yeah, you're holding on to your wallet. I think we're
that's why
getting...
I let you hold my thing so that if you lose them, you can be responsible. You are responsible for them because I know at some stage he's gonna take the shit.
Yeah, this is true. There's I think in 2020 we lost a very expensive camera, and then the next week Mina came with new shoes. Like, I'm not saying, but I'm saying.
I am.
Yeah.
He took a very expensive camera and traded it for shoes. They did not even give him socks.
No,
it
they
was
just gave him
shoes.
shoes.
It
Just
was
shoes. And they were not even the same. Like, they were both left. But
When he walks, every time he walks this way.
yeah, he's just taking
Just
left
keep him
hand. We have a few minutes to go. We have a few questions from some of the younger comedians, some of the comedians we've been with. We had a very interesting fast night when we landed. We went to a very nice Swahili dinner, and then after that we went out clubbing. But it turned out into a workshop.
Yes.
But unfortunately, we couldn't have every single comedian that we hoped would be there at that particular point.
Yeah.
But what we did is on our Telegram group, and on the other groups, we basically set out questions of what would you want to know from Chris Mapane and all his experiences and everything that he's learned. So we have a few questions here. And the very first question that we have
That's a shit question.
is,
Oh.
who killed AKA? Like, let's just start from there. Do you know? But in all seriousness, there's a question that came in, and the question is, a lot of comedians struggle with identity and knowing their personal style. What would you say is one of the things or one of the ways a person can learn their personal style in terms of performance?
Is being on stage and trying all the different ones. And also, let's go back to the word identity.
Yeah.
You know, when all these functions, in fact, all these activities that we do, what do? You're a lawyer. What do? You are a doctor.
Yeah.
What do? You're a comedian. They go to a space where we started to believe that we are functions,
Yes.
not human.
Not human, yeah.
You know, so we're not, look, man, comedy is just a title of what we do, but we are actually human beings, right? So, and also, remember earlier on I mentioned that the professions that you guys do, they also allow material
Yes.
to be about everything.
Everything, yeah.
Right. I always say to young cats that you just live life. I'll have conversations with Vafa, and it's like, okay, how do I prepare for this? I'm like, just live life. You know, you're an engineer, so just be an engineer.
Yeah.
And then go on stage and talk to those people as an engineer.
As an engineer, yes.
You know, so in terms of style of performance, you just need to keep trying out all of them. Amen. I've performed sitting down the whole performance. I've performed with my hands in my pockets. I performed running. I've performed, you know, just keep doing
it.
everything. Don't be afraid to change every single performance you do. Try this. At some stage, you will find one that is comfortable for you.
For you, yeah.
And even that still, it will change at some stage.
As you keep practicing, it will keep on changing.
You know,
it will keep on going.
so we keep growing, we keep discovering ourselves, and then certain things happen in our personal lives that also changes, you know, the style.
Yeah.
You see, there is no particular way to be on stage.
Yes.
What people want to see is for you to be you. Let me give you a story. So Heritage Day in South Africa, I'll go watch one of the games. One of our professional teams invited me, right? We drink. And then the team wins. We drink more. So while we are drinking, I get a call from Joe Parker. When Parker's Comedy was the first African Comedy Club.
Yeah.
So Joe calls me, and then it's like, yo, Chris, where are you? I'm like, hey, man,
I'm out.
it's a fucking holiday. I'm in Soweto. You know, it's Heritage Day. I'm drinking.
Yeah.
Then he goes, can you make it to the club in about 25 minutes? Right. At the time I'm driving a Mac, you know, I'm like, Joe, I can make it in 2. But just so you know, I am drunk. Joe is
Disclaimer.
like, I don't care.
Also, just notice how he casually put in drinking and driving in that conversation. Please, carry
Oh
on.
yeah, no, don't worry. That's being African. So if you don't drink and drive, you are sellout. So we get in the thing. I get my guys like, yo, we need to go. There's a show now, right? I get to this show because somebody had cancelled on Joe, but bro, I'm gone. Like,
Gone, yeah.
right. So the MC, because remember what I said. People want to see you today.
Yes.
They want to be with you. So you really need to be present to today, not yesterday, not what you're thinking of the future. And then the MC says, you guys know it's Heritage Day. Parkers is Monte Casino, and so it was predominantly white audience.
White audience,
you know? So I was like, this guy was in Soweto. Just so you know, he's drunk. We called him now to come replace Mark Banks.
Yeah.
So I get on stage, and then I hold the mic. I'm like, you guys already know what's going on, right? Yeah, I need to be on stage for 25 minutes. So hold on, I want you to get the right position so I can do the show. And then I stand. Okay, lean forward. Yeah. Cool. We're good. Let's do the show. Then I did the entire 25 minutes, like just, but the crowd was with me throughout because I was not trying to hide from them.
There's, I think what we could call it is a vulnerability and acceptance of who you are.
Yes. It also happens with Q Dube from Zim. Yes, one of the funny cat. I think he was here not long ago.
He was here. He was supposed to come back, but he is doing a show when we were having our show here. But he will be coming through here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Q, Zim comedians lost a comedian, Clive. I didn't know him, but it touched Q very bad. Yeah. And the same day, Q Dube was doing his one-man show. Right. So I call him during the day. Then I'm like, hey man, you're doing your one-man show today. You just lost your brother the night before. What's happening?
Yeah.
And then he tells me, it's like, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, call me 2 minutes before the show.
Yeah.
And then he calls me 2 minutes before the show. And then I'm like, how you feeling? And then he tells me, I'm like, cool. Don't try to fix that. Take that feeling on stage.
It's hilarious that you're saying that. I was having a conversation with a comedian who lost her father about a month ago. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to get her back on stage. And she was saying, I feel like I'll go on stage and I'll cry.
Yeah.
And I said, how is it as comedians we are allowed to have all these emotions? Every other one. We're allowed to be upset. We're allowed to be happy. We're allowed to be furious. We're allowed to be whatever. But who said we're not allowed to be sad?
Yes.
Because even in that sadness, there is humor. Even in that sadness, there is a humanity that we need to be able to acknowledge at all different times. And when you think about it, if we're saying we don't want to talk about death and we don't want to talk about this because it's very dark, think about the things we joke about. We joke about relationships. We joke about corruption. We joke about a broken system. All of these things are things that should make us sad and angry and upset. So I really believe that what you're saying is that vulnerability allows us to basically get into who we are and basically influences a lot of what we become. I think you've answered about 2 different questions within that.
Yeah, I feel like, just a second there, if you don't mind me adding, I feel like it's a human thing, where we feel the need to fix.
Yes.
We're not supposed to do this. And so the moment you're feeling sad, as you said, you want to fix it.
Yeah.
Like, I always say, what are you fixing? We lost a comedy brother. It was one of my best friends, my brother's, like Mohabi, right?
Yeah.
And he was at his memorial service. Comedians were there. I even did a set.
This is how fucked up comedians are. Anytime is stage time. It's like, Pastor, can I do 5 minutes before you lower the body?
Because the guy is part of the family, and this is how we do our things. You know what I'm saying? So don't fix it. My mentoring style is this: I do 90% your life and 10% on stage, because you live most of your life off stage. So what happens there, if you're present to it, and then it's going to come out nicely.
Yeah.
There are comedians, the people who talk about, you mentioned the word dark. There's comedians who perform to escape it.
Yes.
and then they will also take it out on the audience. You've seen them.
I've seen it, yeah.
Where you're like, hey man, you're going through some shit, but you don't want to deal with it.
You don't want to deal with it,
Now
so you're putting
punching
this onus on the audience.
You know what I'm saying? So hence it's also important for comedians to do as much therapy as they can.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, those are the kind of things that I feel like we need to look at.
I want to run into a two-part question here. A question comes from one of the comedians, and the question is, what did you learn later in your career that you wish you had learned before when you were starting out? But also, what are 4 tips or 3 tips that you'd give to a new comedian?
What I learned later is that it also, in a way, kind of goes with some of the things we said. I am ridiculously smart.
And humble, apparently.
I don't give a damn.
And humility is yeah.
But I still remember this. I intentionally said, I'm never going to show that on stage. You know, and then every time I have a conversation with people off stage, they're like, yeah, man, you actually know shit, you know? And then KG is the one who said to me, hey, man, how come when we talk, you're this person and on stage you're just playing?
Yeah.
You know, and then that weird thing, I was like, oh, so now you're saying I should bring this person on stage.
Yeah.
You know, I've always advocated for comedians to be the same, you know, but myself, I was not.
You were not, yeah.
I was not doing it. And then there are comedians who have other skills, you know, others can sing, others can
dance,
dance,
do
others
voices,
can act,
yeah.
you know. And I've seen comedians intentionally saying that I don't want to take this thing. You know, there's this girl in the country, Stella. Stella is a good actress, but she's like, yeah, but I want people to like, hey man, you can act. You know, if you're on stage and then you're doing your character, give us a good job, because that's your thing. Specialize in that.
That's your strength.
That's your strength, and then show that. You know? So those are the things that I've learned later also. You said, what's the second one?
What are some of the tips? Let's say 3 tips that you'd give to a new comedian. If you just had 3 tips you can give to a new comedian.
Dedicate at least an hour every day into your writing. Every day.
Every single day.
Yeah, I don't do it, but I'm good. Put in the time, and then perform as much as you can.
Yeah.
In fact, I think this is the number one thing of stand-up comedy:
stage time. Man, just get on stage like that. Oh man, whatever you do, get on stage, right? And then we also now need to get to a space where we define what comedy is for you and what comedy means for you. Mpo Pops, one of the greatest comedians, he will call me before a show and then be like, hey man, I'm doing this thing and I've had this kind of shit day, right? And my thing is, you need to get your comedy to a point where comedy is what you need when things are not going well. You know, when you're going through a bad day, when everything, you're like, fuck man, I just want to be on stage.
Yes.
You know, so comedy must mean that. For most people, it's the opposite.
It's the opposite, yeah. If I'm having a good day, that's when I want to go on stage.
Yes.
If I'm having a bad day, I take a break, whatever.
You know what I'm saying?
I think what you're saying is very true, because we've always said this, is that comedy needs to be your sanctuary.
Yes.
It's the place you feel the safest. It's the place you feel the most reassured. Because again, it's also a community.
Yes.
It's also a community. And not just a community of the comedians, it's also a community of the audiences.
Yes.
Which brings us to a question that we received just before the show started, and that was, how do we deal with imposter syndrome? Because I feel like a lot of us as comedians, you get there and you're good, and then at some point you start to doubt yourself. You're like, have I peaked? Have I reached the pinnacle of am I good at this? How do you deal with that?
Remember, all these things that are happening are happening. You know, you must always try to deal with what is, right? So when you get to a point where you're doubting yourself, be present to it and be fine. It's fine. Doubt yourself. So what? You know, remember, the moment you feel the need to fix anything, you know, there will be times where it does not make sense. There are times where I feel like, fuck, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Right? But then this is what I do when I say that. I say, I don't feel like doing this shit. Right? You know, we, unfortunately, but like I said, is a human thing. We live in a space where people are no longer doing what needs to be done. You know, people can do whatever the fuck they want. You have a responsibility to yourself, responsibility to the next 4 generations, you know. Earlier on, we spoke about carrying the entire community with what
Yes.
we do,
Yeah.
right? My main thing also being here is that I'm opening this pipeline
Yes.
for South African
For South African
comedians
comedians
to be here, and also from comedians here to be in South
be in South
Africa.
Africa. I want us to give a shout out to the people who are making this pipeline possible. This pipeline started out with Tanzania. So Punchline Comedy Club Tanzania, Ahmed and Evans, these guys, we met, we were able to connect this thing.
Yes.
And now what we have done is that the pipeline has been extended, and now we're looking at South Africa, that is Joburg, Cape Town, and other cities as well, Dar es Salaam, and then Nairobi, Kenya. And we are also exploring the possibilities of going into other African cities.
Yes.
So shout out to everyone who's doing that. Shout out to KG as well down there. Shout out to Ndumiso Lindi. Shout out to everyone, Tumi Murake, all these people who are making this possible. We really appreciate what you're doing. Hamis Mde as well down in Dar es Salaam. Thank you so much for being here. But what you're saying is, we're building a community that is actually pan-African.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there will be times where I don't feel like doing it.
Yeah.
But I'll also remember I also have a responsibility to the entire community.
Yes.
And then I will step out. Remember, Doc, I think you play, man, up until you are looking, or your push is something bigger than yourself.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So is that. So the times where you don't feel like doing it, pick up a call another comedian. I have long conversations with KG Mukhadi a lot, you know, and sometimes it's hardly even about just being on stage.
Yeah.
You know, it's about what I'm
It's
going
about
through.
life.
You know, yeah. Because comedians, we weird. We're weirdos.
Yeah.
Right?
Outsiders.
So get other weirdos and form a WhatsApp group. You know, and just do that. So the moment you're feeling a certain way, find a comedian that you can talk to, and not so that they can change the way you feel. You don't change that.
Yes.
You know, when you're feeling sad, this is what I say. This is the advice I give to people when they're feeling sad. Have a playlist of sad songs that make you even sadder.
Okay.
And just fucking listen to that thing and be sad up until this point where you can't be sad anymore. When you feel like crying, cry to a point where you can't cry no more. Never stop. Right? So let's talk about the technical. Shiru, the performance yesterday. So when there's this thing that we call continuous laughter.
Yes.
Where you hit a line and then the audience is with you, right? Sometimes it's when someone just like then he hits you here.
It's like a tease. It's like a tease.
Why did you stop?
Yeah.
Right? So you want to be there and then just
Keep going.
you know,
Keep it
and
going.
then it gives you that.
Yeah.
You know, I milk things when I do them. Like
If you're getting the laughter, keep it going.
I'll milk as much as I can.
My producer is saying we are almost out of time. The last question that we have is, what is your approach to crowd work? Every single time you've performed here, every single time we've seen you online, every single time we've seen you everywhere, anywhere in the world, is the crowd is euphoric. It is almost as though the spirit is moving within you that goes into the crowd. The only thing I can describe it as is almost like a religious movement in one way or the other.
You answered the question. Before I go on stage, I always pray. Before I leave the hotel, I always pray. When I'm at home, I do it with my lady. And literally all the time, that's what I always pray. Let me and the people be controlled by one spirit. And then what you also need to get is that people don't go to comedy shows to get bored. They go there because they already want to have fun. So when you say to them, guys, we can do this, come on now, they also go there because they always wanted to go there anyway.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not even something that I look for. It's not even hard to find.
Yeah.
Because they want it anyway. Right? And then once you are one with your people, you can, remember, I always say comedy is communication. Right? So once you are one with the people, you can easily get the energy that you want. And when I ask, I don't go on stage and start fishing for jokes and stuff. So when I talk to somebody, I know what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? And also, I perform from love. You know? So when I speak to an audience member, when I perform and then there's one table that is not part
All
of
the
this
way
thing,
in, yeah.
I'll have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
Hey,
And understand why are you not,
what's happening? What do you need?
Yeah.
I want you to be part of this.
Yeah.
And then we can go to the technicals of that. But for me is that I always say, what are you present to? and what you want for your audience.
It's incredible that you're echoing the words of Dio Gracious, who was here a month ago, and he said almost exactly what you're saying word for word, whereby no one goes out to have a bad time. No one ever wakes up and says, I want to go and have a horrible time at the comedy club. Today is going to be a shit day for me.
Yeah.
Everyone who's out there is already rooting for you. Everyone
Yes.
out there is there hoping to have a good time.
Yes.
So I always tell comedians is, if you are having a good time, it becomes infectious.
Yes.
It becomes infectious because you cannot hide that spirit that you're talking about.
People go through different things. People are busy. People have things that they are doing in their lives, and they trust you.
Yes.
That's the thing again, that you cannot, we're doing comedy, but we're not being silly there. You know what I'm saying? If you go out with your lady, I cannot be there wasting your time and just fooling around.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So the fact that people trust us with our time, it means we also need to reciprocate that, you know, and then give them love.
We are at the tail end of this particular podcast, but I have one question for you. You're in Nairobi for the next couple of days. We're doing a big show tomorrow. Your Mama for this particular month has been sold out. That's a big thing for us. But what are you looking forward to seeing, to doing, to experiencing in Nairobi with the time that you have with us here?
I wanna do that watatu buses.
Matatu
buses.
What is happening is immediately after this podcast, Chris and some of the comedians are going to the city center to actually take what we can call Kenya's heritage, like our public service vehicles. Do you know that Kenyan public service vehicles, we actually have driverless cars? Did you know this? We have driverless cars.
In this road?
Yes.
In this
we have driverless cars.
Because you guys don't give a damn about the guys who are in scooters.
No.
I saw that. You don't respect those guys for shit.
No, that's because they don't respect themselves. First driverless cars in Nairobi as public service vehicles. Can you believe it?
Big up to the tech guys here, man, because your technology here, man, is
that has nothing to do with tech. It's because the driver is drunk. He is also the guy who's welcoming people to the car. He is also the DJ. He does everything except drive. The car literally just drives. It's by God's grace. When you get home,
So we need to find a way for me to see these buses from outside.
And inside.
And not in motion.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we have come to the end of a conversation that can keep going on and on and on and on. You guys will see much more of Chris Mapane because he is not only here this time. This is the first of many trips that he is making. After this is actually his East Africa tour. He is going to be with our brothers down in Dar es Salaam at Punchline Comedy Club Tanzania. They have a 2-day show that's going to be super hot. They're doing some workshops there just like we did here. But more than anything, we have actually established the pipeline. You know that thing they used to say from Cape to Cairo?
Yes.
That is what is happening. But this time, it is not the colonizers who are doing it. We are doing it for
And we are using flights.
Yes. Yeah, no. You know, Africans like the idea of going by road is good, but no. We want to be able to get there really quick.
That's
Chris,
so good.
any parting shots for our listeners, for our viewers, any words of wisdom that you want to impart, any shout outs that you have for anyone out there, please, this is your moment.
I think, like I said, the big one is like give up, man, for KG Mokhadi, as a brother there, Ahmed, Eddie, Dahal, Evans, and my lady, and my kids, Tyra and the boys.
Yo, you had it here first. Proud father, proud friend, but more than anything, amazing comedian. This has been the Sit Down with Standups.
Quick one. Guys, please pray that these fuckers upgrade my flight. Thank you.
I don't think we have the currency to do that. What we can do is we can buy you spirits. You remember how you was talking about spirits? There's a spirit called Kenya Cane. If you drink that before you board, you will feel like you're in first class. Even if they put you with the luggage, you're fine. Trust me, bro. I think this has been the podcast that sits down with comedians to find out what goes on behind the scenes, but more importantly, to find out what is happening in and around, on and off stage. The Sit Down with Standups is a podcast brought to you by Punchline Comedy Club. I want to give a shout out to the people behind the lenses who make this possible. Our audio engineer and the best DJ that you have out there. He has actually been tallied as the best comedy DJ in Africa by no less than 18 different comedians from around the world. Selector OCS, thank you very much for the work that you do. Yeah. We also want to thank the super producer. This lady is amazing. She is a screenwriter, but she's also the person who makes sure everything comes together. Miss Grace Adiambo, thank you very much. We have the people who are also producing and helping things behind the scenes. I'm talking about Marcus Douglas. I'm talking about Shiru Mwangi. I'm talking about people like Maina Munene, who has been saved from a life of crime through comedy. So thank you very much for that. And most importantly, the person who makes things happen on the ground, Mr. Lampard Galava, we appreciate you and all the efforts you've done. And we want to thank you for being able to tune into this thing. This podcast is available on all platforms that you can listen to your podcast at. Bootleg this shit, we don't care. Send it to your friends, send it to your grandmother. Listen to this with your church group. There's very important swearing and cussing that they also need to know how to pray against. So please do that. We'll see you next time. We're very grateful. Chris, asante sana for being here.
Amen.
Let's go get you a matatu and let's also go get you robbed, man. Thank you.